again when uh oh, someone just forgot the record. So it's how to debate part two. So it's just a continuation of what we were discussing 3 weeks ago. So we're just gonna do a quick recap and then a more in-depth explanation because during our assessment, I did receive some comments that the latest presentation was a bit difficult, which I completely expected because it's an entirely new realm. It's a new thing that you guys are learning. It's a bit difficult to grasp, and I feel like you'll immediately understand what we're talking about once you guys start debating. So ayun, very expected that that teaching you guys the introduction to debate might be a bit difficult and might be a bit like we'll be taking it slowly, step by step. So ayun. So my second question is that if you believe in second chances, do you guys believe in second chances? Raise your hand down if you guys want to answer. Brian, do you believe in second chances? Cynic, so no. Anyone else? Does anyone else believe in second chances? Doesn't work. Precious bucket. Why does it not work? Ba't hindi nag-work yung second chances? It will fail lang ulit. Oh, true, true. James, 50-50. Oh, bakit 50-50, James? Why do you think it's ano? Why do you think 50-50 lang
Pero
siya?
kapag binigyan niyo po siya ng second chance, they would either do the same thing over and over again or they would improve.
Tama, tama. Hmm. Na-ask ko lang yung question na to kasi ang daming na-hurt sa Twitter kahapon because Taylor Swift released Red again, Taylor's version of Red. So, ang daming sawi, ang daming nagbe-message ng mga ex nila. So, I'm like, all of you better stop. You're just gonna hurt yourself. So, hindi po tayo, we went through a pandemic and everything. I know all of you guys are so lonely. So, before you message your exes, think twice. So, yun. That was my check-in question. But as promised during the assessment, a lot of you guys really enjoy my my icebreakers. So I decided that in addition to the motivator, I'm still gonna do an icebreaker. So this session's icebreaker is fill in the vine. Naabutan niyo pa ba yung Vine? Like, I hope I hope naman naabutan niyo yung Vine, like the social media platform Vine. Parang, Jesus, don't like this was the only icebreaker I could think of, Brian. Or after I did after I finished all of the slides, I just realized that I could have done an icebreaker where um I would have you guys sing Taylor Swift songs just in celebration for it. Pero, next week na lang yun. So, each round, I'll be flashing you guys an iconic line, and you guys just have to fill in the blank and answer as quick as you can. You could unmute yourself, you could just type it in chat. So, yeah, that's just the icebreaker for today. So, fill in the line. Is everyone ready? I guess everyone's ready. Okay, first line. Two bros chilling in a hot tub, 5 feet apart because they're not bad. Anyone? Yeah, yes, Kirsten. You, because they're not the best. No, this is pre-pandemic. Kirsten, do you want to sing it? Do you want to sing?
Two bros chilling at hot well, 5 feet apart because they're not.
You can say it because I'm allowing you as a gay person. So so you're not gonna get cancelled because I told you to sing it. You have my bus as a gay person. All right, next. I smell like blank. Either all of you guys are have not watched Vines, or you guys are super young. Yeah, James, do you want to do your most accurate reenactment of this Vine? No, fine. I'm gonna reenact it myself with my superb acting skills. I smell like beef. I smell like beef. I smell like beef. I smell like beef. We have oh no, I forgot. Oh no, I'm doomed. Okay, I'm gonna get cancelled by my own debate kids. Anyways, next one. How do you know what's good for me? That's my blank. Jessica, do you want to reenact it? Okay. You can do the first line, then I'll do the second line.
Okay, how do you know what's good for me?
That's my opinion! Okay, thank you for the. I guess this is so super awkward, medyo awkward, but like I'm super having fun with it. So yeah, it's a blank. Thanks. Anyone? It's arsenic. Right, stop. It's a blank. Thanks. Okay, I'm just gonna do a quick survey right now. Who among here has zero clue what's going on right now? Raise your hand.
I only have some clue.
Oh no.
I
A
actually
lot.
never had Vine.
I never watched
Oh
Vine because I never had it.
Hindi ko rin pinanood, pero nakikita ko sa YouTube.
yeah, I only watch on
Same.
YouTube. So parang I'm like, oh no. This is a boomer thing. I made the boomer icebreaker. Oh no. Anyway, so yeah, it's an avocado. Bang. Oh no, ako lang yung pinapaya ko sa icebreaker na to. Oh no, what happened? What happened? I just pressed something and then Shrek is blank. The Shrek is blank. If you guys don't know what this video is, I'm telling you now, don't find out. It's gonna scar you for life. So Shrek has jaundice. Shrek will die. Red, stop. Stop. We're here at Del Taco. They got new thing called free blank. Free free show. Oh no, feeling ko dadalawa. Tatatlo lang yung tao that understand what's happening right now and everyone's just wondering what the fuck is this guy doing. Free Shavakadu. I think, baka papanoorin ko kayo ng Vine compilation just out of fun things. Miss Keisha. Miss Keisha. Oh my fucking god, she fucking blank. Dang. I thought this was gonna. I thought this sounded better in my head. I spilled blank on your Valentino bag. You spilled lipstick on my Valentino white. Oh, I white bag. Oh, not. I answered myself. The answer was lipstick. I spelled industrial grade brew. No, no, bro. Stop. There's one thing worse than a rapist. Who? A child. Do you guys understand the context of this line? Let's educate people who haven't who haven't.
There is only one thing worse than a rapist. Boom. A child. No.
That's it. That's it. Well, I'm just gonna skip that because I feel like nobody understands it anymore. So I'm just gonna go straight to the presentation to avoid further awkwardness. All right. So thank you to the two to five people who understood what was happening. So and commiserations and condolences for everyone who didn't and had to go through all of that weird and awkward acting that just happened for 5 minutes. It's okay. So let me drink some water to make it look like I am taking this seriously now. No, please don't. Okay, so now we're just gonna do a recap of everything. It's going to be a condensed and summarized version of what we learned 3 weeks ago. So it's just going to help you guys it's just going to keep everyone up to date, sort of refresh what happened for the last 3 weeks ago, because I'm sure that may have been lost there in your short-term memory. So I'm going to take it back. I'm going to remind you guys what we learned 3 weeks ago. So we were both discussing how debate is both discussion and a game. We discussed how debate is both discourse because we're forwarding new ideas, new solutions to problems. But at the same time, debate is also referred to as a game because it has certain rules in order for us to facilitate a discussion that is fruitful, that is healthy, that respects everyone, and the debate is more about people's opinions and not the people themselves. There are rules needed in place. That's why it's a game because there are certain rules and there is a standard. There are standards and there are ways to find out whether or not someone wins or someone loses a debate. So that's why there's a distinct. So that's why we both refer to debate as both discussion and a game. But what do we debate about? So what we mentioned that we debate motions being topics under dispute in the debate, normally given as a statement. So in debates, what usually happens is that motions are either proposed or opposed. So in the debate, people are tasked to either support or to negate a side. So there's no middle ground. It's no There's no you saying, oh, we can do both solutions at the same time. In a debate, you're either asked to defend the side or you're asked to oppose a side. You're not going to be in the middle, or you're not going to say I'm gonna disagree with both sides and I'm gonna propose a new solution. So in a debate, you're asked to either defend or oppose the side of the motion itself. You're not going to stray away from the motion. You're not going to stray away from the debate. You're gonna stick with what is being proposed. Yeah, like as Brian says, someone proposes an idea, someone refutes it. No one says, when someone proposes an idea, the other side doesn't say, I support that idea. That just makes them lose the debate. So a debate happens because there is a conflict. There is a clear distinction between I like this idea, I dislike this idea. So that's what debate looks like. There's always that clash of ideas. So we should give milkshakes to everyone for free. We're lactose intolerant. I think a better example of what Bella said is like, a person would say we should give milkshakes to everyone for free, or someone, but the other team would say we shouldn't give milkshakes to everyone for free, or they could say we should give milkshakes to everyone, but for a price. So there's always that distinction. There's no, they're not completely agreeing to every aspect of what they were saying. So, for example, another example is I like Hawaiian pizza. Of course, the other team would go, I hate Hawaiian pizza. We don't like Hawaiian pizza. So yun. So there's a clear contention there. There is a clear disagreement whether or not Hawaiian pizza good? Is Hawaiian pizza valid or something like that? So there's a clear contention. Like, nagkakadebate na sa chat of Hawaiian pizza supremacy. So yeah, there's a debate. So yeah, that's what debates look like. There's always a contention. There's always a clear clash of ideas. And the thing that we call of what we're debating is emotion. So yeah, there we go. Pretty straightforward. So, yeah, so we mentioned that the reason uh, why we call it parliamentary debate is because how we're debating, the style and the rules of debating are inspired by actual houses of Congress. Like for example, our House of Representatives. So that's why the wording of the motion is always this house would ban smoking in public spaces. For example, this house prefers eating Hawaiian pizza, or this house uh, is pressing for them to be discussed. So Bell says motion because for them to be discussed by parliaments, a member of parliament had to physically give a copy to the leader of the parliamentary house. So yeah, so the motions are literally former ano, how some how some forms of government debate their policies, their public policies. So we do that, but we don't debate just public policy. We debate about random things. We debate about pop culture. We debate about media. We talk about environment, politics, international relations. So debating is more, I know, it's more um, ubiquitous. Big word, It's more, it's more all catching. Like it's more, it's it's more tawag dito, all encompassing. Like everything under the sun. Ganong vibes na hindi siya restricted to just talking about public policy. Of course, in debate, we do talk about public policy. It's just that, for debating, in particular, the sport that we do, the reason why we're in the debate society, we talk about literally anything. We can talk about Harry Potter. We can talk about like um, the we could talk about Yemen's humanitarian crisis. We can talk about Squid Game. We can talk about K-pop. So yeah, so every topic is like generally welcome in debate. So we presented to you guys the two formats of debating here in the Philippines: the Asian parliamentary format and the British parliamentary format. So for the Asian parliamentary format, you're given 30 minutes to prepare your given side, and it's a clear clash of debating between one team versus another team. So the clash is it's very obvious. The only team that you have to you're against the team right in front of you. When you're government, you're against opposition. When you're opposition, you're going against government. So in Asian parliamentary format, there are 3 members per teams and 3 members per team. So there are 6 total debaters in a round. It's just that the reply speakers, as you can see here, government reply and opposition reply come from your first 2 speakers. So government reply is either your prime minister or your deputy prime minister, while opposition reply is either your leader of opposition or your deputy leader of opposition. So whips couldn't be reply speakers to make it very clear. So yeah, so for Asian parliamentary format, the clash of a debate is very simple. The only thing you have to do is to beat your opponent, the team that's right in front of you. So why am I explaining this? Why am I making it? Why is it? Parang I'm making a clear distinction that it's more clearer in Asian parliamentary format. But it's because for the next format, British parliamentary format, it's a whole new game. So in a British parliamentary format, we discussed that there are 4 teams in one round. And we have opening government, we have opening opposition, we have closing government, and we have closing opposition. So essentially 4 teams in one round. So you're not just against the team right in front of you. You're competing against 3 other teams. So when you're opening government, for example, here, you're up against opening opposition, closing government, and closing opposition. So you are literally against 3 other teams in the debate round. So, and then just as another example, just to make it clear, when you're closing opposition naman, you're against opening government, opening opposition, and closing government as a team. And in comparison to Asian parliamentary format, you are only given half the time. You are only given 15 minutes to prepare in British parliamentary format. So, and it's much more dynamic. In British parliamentary format, the most important thing is strategy. In comparison to Asian parliamentary format, the most important thing in Asian parliamentary format is engagement. So in Asian parliamentary, it's easy for judges to see it's easy for judges to see whether a team was better or not because they're only just comparing one team with another team. In comparison to, for example, the British parliamentary format, judging can be quite harder because you're not only just comparing one team over another team, you're also comparing one team over one team over one team over one team. So, for example, when you say that you think that opening government was more responsive and better in comparison to opening opposition, for example, you also have to compare that to closing government, closing opposition. So what would that look like? So parang you're gonna say that if opening government was the most responsive team in the entire round, and you said that because they were more responsive to than opening opposition, then if you're gonna say that they're the most responsive team, then you should also be saying that they were more responsive than opening opposition, closing government, and closing opposition. So you're not just comparing one team to one team. You're comparing it to opening government to open opposition, to closing government, and then to closing opposition. So strategy is extremely important in British parliamentary because you have to emphasize to judges why your team is the most special team in the entire debate. And that could be really tricky. So for example, because for opening teams, um, once they're done talking and the closing teams get to talk, sometimes their contributions can get lost because ayun, um because of time passing by and because of teams getting to speak more than you, they have more time to think of rebuttals to say against you. Um, ayun. sometimes opening teams that speak first start to lose relevance as the debate progresses because their ideas may be relevant from the start, but as the debate progresses, they start to lose relevance if they aren't able to establish that. In comparison, for example, to closing teams, for example, this one, for these two in the bottom, closing government and closing opposition, when if for example they're opening teams like opening government and opening opposition, kinuha na nila lahat ng arguments na naisip ninyo. For example, in a debate about this house believes that pineapple pizza, Hawaiian, pineapple should be banned on pizza. Opening government has already said, has argued everything that you could have think of, that uh, that that pizza, that tomato sauce and pineapples don't mix together, or that um, that Italians never liked pineapples on pizza in the first place, or that the because there's a general consensus that a lot of people don't prefer eating pineapple pizza. It's more of like if it's there, they just eat it. They eat Hawaiian pizza just because it was pizza, not because it was Hawaiian pizza. So yun, naubos na yung arguments na naisip ninyo. That's how that's why strategy is important. Like opening governments have the advantage of being able to speak first and be able to get all of the arguments out of the way. Opening government and opening opposition have the advantage where they could speak first and they can get as much arguments in. In comparison, closing government and closing opposition have the advantage that they could have deeper arguments because even if you have a debate is not won based on how many arguments you have. A debate is won with who has the best arguments, not because you said no. So, for example, your another team might have said 10 arguments, but if you only had 2 arguments that were well built, that had nice examples, that had good analysis, that is comparatively better to a team that had 10 arguments that were sure a lot and had different dimensions to them. But if those 10 arguments weren't explained enough, they weren't given examples, a lot of them seemed assertive or weren't explained. Those 2 arguments that had more depth is severely outweighs those 10 arguments that have no grounding, have no explanation, no examples, or whatnot. So ayun, so that's what you guys need to remember. The debate doesn't your position in the debate affects how you should be strategizing in the round. So when you're in opening government and opening opposition, the first two team, this one and this one, you could strategize by trying to exhaust as much arguments to make sure that your closing houses don't have anything else to say. Whereas closing teams like closing government and closing opposition could capitalize by building arguments that both of their opening governments and opening opposition weren't able to fully maximize or fully able to explain. So closing teams could say that yes, they argue, our opening team said this, but we feel like as a closing team we could have explained it better, and here is why. Here is why we think that this is the better explanation in comparison to our opening teams. So, does anyone have any questions, or is there a little bit of confusion? So we can go through it before we start delving into more specifics. Was that a question, James? Or is that an emoticon? Anyone has any questions? Raise your hand if you feel like you understood everything I just said. Okay. There are 7 people who are raising their hand. 8 people. 9. For the 9 other people that aren't raising their hand, what questions do you have? For the 8 people who have questions, what questions do you have? Alright, so seeing as to there is no questions, we can go forward to opening half and closing half. So we're going to take a more step-by-step approach now in explaining the difference and the strategies that you should be taking if you're placed in either opening half or closing half. So let's first discuss halves in a debate in British parliamentary debate. So very similar to Asian parliamentary format where there was just yung 1v1 lang. There are clear sides. You're either government side, you're either supporting a motion, and you are in opposition side. You are opposition side, the one negating the motion. So, for example, if you are debating this house, tawag dito, this house, let's just go with the pineapple example again. Like, this house supports pineapples on pizza. Both opening government and closing government are going to defend, and both of them are going to defend that they support pineapples on pizza. In opposition side, you guys are negating the motion. So for opening opposition and closing opposition, they're going to defend by saying that they're against pineapples on pizza. So, ayun, so in BP, your primary goal is to be the best team out of the 4 in the room. But this is where it kind of gets a bit complicated. So even if you're still, even if you're against 3 people, 3 teams in a room. So for example, if you're in opening government, you're against opening opposition, and closing government. You are still technically on the same side as closing government. So what does that mean? You guys are, for the benefit of the debate, you're still buddies. You're still on the same side as the team that is vertical against you. So by vertical, I mean this. Opening government and closing government share the same vertical, while opening opposition and closing opposition share the same vertical. So this is the government vertical, the opposition vertical. And what this means is that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, James. Yeah, that's a good analysis. That um, opening opposition and closing opposition are your enemies here, and they're still against closing government. So technically, closing government is still your friend here. So what's gonna happen is that in debates like this, even though you're against 3 other teams, you're not going to specifically say that closing government is going to be worse than me as opening government. You're not gonna say that. You're still technically on the same side. So the only teams you can directly attack are the teams of the opposite vertical or the opposite side. So for opening government, the only teams you can rebut to or respond to is opening opposition and closing opposition. This doesn't mean to say that you can say that you're better than the team that you're sharing the same vertical with. For example, this was what Kristen was saying last three 3 weeks ago when she asked a judge told me that I sounded like I was knifing my opening. So what was happening? So what did she mean there? You were at closing government, right, Kristen?
Yes,
Um,
Bob.
So closing government shares the same vertical as opening government. And the judge said that Kirsten felt like she was knifing opening government. So knifing is what is the term for when debaters directly attack the team that's sharing the same vertical. So what's the difference of saying that you're better than the team you share the same vertical as with knifing? With knifing, you take a more very direct and offensive approach. You're saying na, oh, we're much more better than them and they're irrelevant to the entire debate. That's what knifing sounds like. Like sobrang sobrang obvious how you're going against the team you're sharing with the same vertical as, in comparison to saying that you're just better than the other side, the other team sharing the same vertical. What it would sound like would probably be, as much as opening government had the correct arguments and had the correct ideas, we feel that closing government could be better because we're going to prove why: one, it's more urgent; two, it's more necessary; three, it has more benefits. Ganon. So parang knifing has a more, like the word itself, knife. There's an edge to it. Like there's an obvious attack against the team sharing your same vertical. So yun. So this is why BP can get very confusing, but at the same time exciting, because you're not only strategizing against the team on the opposing vertical, but against the team within the same vertical. But in comparison to uh, to being more aggressive towards the teams in the other vertical, you're going to be more subtle and more subdued with your criticism with a team sharing your own vertical. So what does it look like? So if you're, for example, closing opposition, you could go all out on being bitchy, and you could go all out on rebutting and saying that their arguments are nothing or their arguments are shit for opening government and closing government. But when you have to say that you're better than opening opposition, for example, it's going to be more subdued. It's going to be more uh, not as obvious and more respectful. So, ayun. So all out on everyone directly in front of you, but more subdued and more respectful for the team right in the same vertical as you. Gets? Does anyone have any questions or like clarifications? Brian, are you raising your hand? Oh, okay. No, no. Does anyone have any questions? Alright, since there's no question, let's go to what we're talking about kanina. Opening half and closing half. So the reason why opening so we discussed the the first kinds of halves, the verticals. Now we have the horizontals, which is called the opening half and the closing half, which from their name is because opening government and opening opposition get to talk first. So they're at the opening half, whereas closing half is closing government and closing opposition, because they're the two teams that get to speak last. So opening government and open opposition are opening because they're the first two teams that speak first. Closing half is like closing because they're the last two teams that get to speak. So yeah, very simple. This is where another dimension of strategy happens. So there's an invisible transition after deputy leader of opposition, because the team moves from the opening half to the closing half. And it marks this evolution of a debate where an entirely new debate happens. Because in the opening half, there are just only two teams fighting one another. So it's only just opening government against opening opposition fighting one another. But when closing government comes in, there are now three teams fighting one another. And when closing opposition comes in, there are four teams now coming and fighting one another. So this is why closing half is expected to have more in depth and more complex argumentation because they're not only competing, you know, because in comparison to opening half, which has a much more easier job where they're only just fighting one another. For closing half, you have to take into account that you're fighting against three more people. So that's why opening half and closing half sort of like changes the dynamic of the debate because it suddenly there's more people now to respond to. So yeah. So what's the difference then? What differences then does opening half have and closing half? So like what differences could we see? So as we mentioned kanina, opening half has better breadth and it has what we call prima facie argumentation. Prima facie is it's a Latin term to mean arguments that you could think of intuitively. So these are arguments that are super like top of mind arguments. Like, for example, this house would ban abortion. The first top of mind argument would be, oh, it's because it's women's right and it's a women's right to their own body. So yeah, that's a prima facie argument uh, for that motion because it's the most obvious motion. So in opening half, expect that you have very obvious argumentation that they're going to have more principled argumentation and more macro argumentation. It's going to be more uh, the pronunciation. Was it bad or was it good? Like, I'm more concerned now.
Normally,
So
it's pronounced prima facie. It should, pero
uh,
in Latin, it would be prima facie pag ecclesiastical Latin or prima facie if classical Latin.
okay. Thanks for the Latin, Latin lesson, right? I was just going it off by my mentor's pronunciation. But sure. Sige. So yun, so for opening half, it's expected that the arguments are going to be more broad and more principled. So what do we mean by principled arguments? So for example, a motion about justice. Dito expect that opening teams are going to talk about how the justice system is about uh, one, serving justice, enforcing justice, and being able to uphold that value of justice all ano, in all sectors of society. So from the police, from the judges. So ayun. So opening half, since they're the first people talking in the debate, they also have the burden of explaining what the debate is. That's why that's why opening half can have a huge burden because they're they're starting the debate by scratch in comparison to closing half where there's already a framework to begin with. People have talked about it already. They could just jump in. Opening half has the huge responsibility of building the entire debate from scratch, from nothing. So the judge's first impression of the debate comes from opening half. And that's why it can be also challenging to be an opening half because you're creating the framework, you're explaining who are the most important characters in the debate, what are the most important values, what are the impacts against against the most vulnerable sector. So that's why opening half can be a bit challenging because you're literally starting the debate. There's no one else to debate with like at the very beginning, but just you. So it could, and so that's why a lot of that's why opening half is more broad because they're setting the stage for the rest of the debate. So that's what opening half looks like. In comparison to closing half, expect closing half to have more depth in comparison to your opening half. As I explained just now, opening half already created the stage of the debate. The only thing closing half has to do now is to act within that world that opening has built. So a lot of their argumentation is going to be more focused or reframing. So opening half has already created the world. Closing half's job now is just to select a particular part or portion or segment of that world and highlight, okay, as much as opening half said that this is the entire world, the only thing that we need to focus on this debate is this particular part of the world. So, for example, when um, on the motion of um, this house would ban abortion, for example, and opening half talks about the health industry, women, police enforcers, families. Closing half is going to say, that's nice and dandy and all. It's great that opening half discussed this, but we feel like the most important person in this debate and the thing that we should be focusing on is women themselves. The women is the most important actor. So there's that element of reframing and focusing on an issue in closing half because um, the important thing here is strategy. It's for for opening half, since they have no one to debate with. The best strategy is to get as much as they can. With closing half, the thing that you have to do is, well, with everything being taken away, what could you take, like what's from the scraps of arguments left, which could you turn into a best serving dish. So parang it's ano, so both halves have their own different advantages. Opening half comparatively has lesser time to talk about their to talk and to think about their issues because they're the first people to speak. In comparison to closing half, they have more time to talk and to prepare with one another because they could still prepare their speeches while opening half is talking. So they have more time to synthesize and think. But at the same time, it also puts pressure on closing half to outperform opening half. If they're if even if they have more time, it doesn't mean that they're gonna get better arguments if opening half got all of those arguments already. So there's a lot of strategy going on in British parliamentary debating because not only are you guys fighting within not not only are you guys fighting people from this opposite side, but you're also fighting against time. You're fighting against losing arguments. You're fighting against people taking your arguments and making it even better than what you had thought of. So British parliamentary is all about strategy. Meanwhile, meanwhile Asian parliamentary format is ooga booga, just beat the other team, just like beat them up, like just get the best arguments out there, and then it's good to go. In comparison to British parliamentary format, where oops, there's a lot of more finesse, there's a lot of more complexity, and strategy going in British parliamentary format. So, does anyone have any questions for opening half and closing half? Any clarification? Okay, go Precious. What's your question?
Yun lang.
Precious is typing their answer. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay. Precious, that's a good question. So, what does Iron Manning mean? So, na-apply po ba yung Iron Man? So, Iron Man is what you call pag MIA yung partner mo. Let, let's go back to first time. Yeah. So, no, Iron Manning is what happens if missing in action yung partner mo. So, for example, you're prime minister, but your deputy prime minister is missing. So, Iron Manning is you have to do two speeches. So that's what Iron Manning means. Like you're doing two speeches, within in your own team. So ayun. So what does that? So what usually happens at Iron Manning is that the judge gets scores that you can win, you can still you can still outperform everyone in the outperform everyone in the uh tawag dito, in the room, yeah, in the debate. So for example, if even if you both do speeches for prime minister and deputy prime minister, which would sound strange because parang what usually happens is parang prime minister said this, and then by their second speech it said, I support what prime minister said, when in fact they were prime minister. So it looks a bit ridiculous because I'm supporting myself. But um if if by the end of the debate the arguments are still relevant, and you made sense, and your arguments are comparatively better than the three other teams in the round, you're still gonna win. But there are certain rules and certain rules in scoring. For example, there's um I don't know if I should talk about this, but ayun, sige. In a competition setting, what happens is that your partner gets a zero. No, they don't get a zero. They get the floor score for the round. So they were absent. Pero, you get scored for ano, for the position that you choose. So, for example, you choose, you either choose to credit either your prime minister or your deputy prime minister's speech if you Iron Man. So, why is this important? Because at the end of the competition, they usually calculate um, speaker scores. So they can't credit two positions for you because that's going to be super unfair. Because so you have to just choose only one position where maka-credit yung score mo, yung speaker score mo. So we're gonna discuss speaker scores maybe next session. So, ayun. So, did that answer your question naman, Precious? Or did you have a specific question in mind about Iron Man? Or while we wait for Precious's answer, does anyone else have any? Yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions they want to ask before we continue? Let's go back. Let's go back. Oops. Any questions? Clarification?
Los.
The reason why I'm asking you clarification is because
Sagot pa yung malpet eh.
we're gonna have a quiz later, and I'm going to ask you guys questions. So you guys better know what I'm talking about right now. Hindi siya graded ha. Like I absolutely abhor graded quizzes. So we're not grading this. It's just for me to know you guys understand what I'm talking about or if not, no. So it's just gonna be an easy quiz. So it's gonna be fine. Anyone has any questions? None? Okay. Clear naman ba? They're Brad happy. Alright, so now we're going to discuss individual speaker roles. So we sort of touched on this last 3 sessions ago. No, 3 weeks ago. So first speaker. So we have what we call our first speakers. We have both prime minister and leader of opposition. And as we mentioned, since they're the first speakers in the round, they're sort of going to be the ones providing the groundwork to the rest of the team. And they're going to set up the debate. Set up meaning identifying who, what, when, how, and the why of the debate. So who's going to be affected by the debate? What are we debating about? When is the debate happening? How are people being affected by this debate? And then why are we debating this in the first place? But Prime Minister and Leader of Opposition, although they share similarities of functions, they do have some differences, key differences. For example, Prime Minister has the primary duty of defining important terms in the debate. So, for example, if you are the Prime Minister in the debate of this House believes that uh, we, sh- uh,
Mhm.
we should prohibit abortions
Push lang tayo, push.
uh, after the second trimester, for example. You have to define what is abortion and what does the second trimester mean. So ayun, so for prime minister, you're expected to the provide definitions, basic definitions of the terms, fair definitions. So sige, let's do a bit of an exercise as prime minister. This house would go vegan.
Yan eh.
If you are prime
Double
minister,
for million bag.
what terms are you going to define? What is veganism? Sige, sige Brad, if you were speaking as prime minister, what would your definition of being a vegan be?
Veganism is the diet preference wherein you choose not to eat any product which is derived from animals.
So yeah, good. It's a fair definition. So yeah, so if you're prime minister, you're just going to give the basic definition of the debate just to clarify things. So yeah, good. Uh, let's see. What's the good? Uh,
Kung matinag nga ako na. Eleven na ba?
I don't know if you're hearing my sister in the background. Pero, okay. Um, this house.
Sumasama sila lagi.
Let's see. Oh, how about this? In the wizarding world, this house would create a Horcrux. Oh, wait.
Sige.
This, yeah, a Horcrux. Oh yeah. What would be the important terms that you would be defining in the debate?
Split pushing.
A Horcrux. Does anyone want to define what a Horcrux is? O sige. Medyo pop savvy, different.
It's
Ah,
an
sige.
object with like your soul inside of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
A
Essentially.
vessel for
Form-
your soul. A vessel
Formed
for
by dark magic.
Yeah, it's a form of dark magic where you place a portion of your soul to it.
In a vessel. Yeah.
Yeah, as a vessel.
Makakabag na lang
Sige.
siya kung sumama
That's
yung papa
another
niya.
Harry Potter example. This house believes that um, in the cases of extreme crimes, this house permits the use of the three unforgivable curses, or the three forbidden curses. Pala. What's ano? What definition? What key definitions would you be giving in that debate? So yeah, let me repeat. Yeah, what? Sige, yeah. What is an extreme crime? What are the three forbidden curses? Yeah. Yeah. So pretty straightforward. So yeah. So when you're prime minister, you're going to have to define these very important terms. So just as to make sure that everyone is pretty clear as to what we're talking about. Are they the death eat? Yeah. So as prime minister, the definition of terms can be very extensive. It doesn't have to just be just the definitions, but also why like why is it important, like why is it bakit important yung mga definitions na to. For example, like the three forbidden curses, you could also define it as why are they forbidden in the first place, or why are we regulating these curses in the first place, or um like because they're being used by the Death Eaters, like who are the Death Eaters, who are they, why are they revered, why are they avoided off. So when you're prime minister, you're literally setting the footwork for everyone else in the debate because you're providing key definitions for the important terms of the debate. Ayun. That's what prime minister does. Next, we have leader of opposition, and leader of opposition provides what we call a clash. A clash is a statement where it explains how is opposition against government stance, or what, or uh, tawag dito. If you guys remember yung lesson natin on argumentation, on logic and argumentation, what the clash is what is the counter argument to government's argument. So for example, if government's stance is that we're going in a debate motion on whether or not we should allow the use of the forgivable curses, opposition's clash would be our clash coming from opposition is to say that we should at all instances never use prohibited curses, even if it's an extreme crime. So again, so it's a simple statement where it explains the stance coming from opposition. So it so why is it important? It's important so that judges immediately know what are like on what grounds are you disagreeing against government as leader of opposition, because there could be instances where sometimes your case sounds like it's against government, but when you look further it's actually it could still be it could sound like you're arguing against government, but you're actually not. You're actually still arguing for their case. So for example, um, uh, let's see. For a motion on this house would ban abortion. Government and prime minister says we're going to our stance is that we're gonna ban abortion. Yeah, but then but then opposition leader of opposition comes in and said we're only going to ban abortion in in cases of informed pregnancies where there was a uh, bad example. We're going to ban abortions during the second and third trimester. Yun. So we're only going to ban them during the second and third trimester of a woman's pregnancy. So that's their clash. But if you notice, if the motion is this house would ban abortion, and opposition is arguing their clash is that we're only going to ban abortion naman if it's on the second and third trimester. The clash isn't clear because
Yun ang
opposition is still arguing. They're still arguing that pwede pa namang mag-ban.
nakalagay.
But the motion clearly states that you need to, you need, as opposition, you need to negate banning. So banning shouldn't be what you should be arguing against. So for example, a more clearer clash for opposition would be, we're not gonna ban abortion, we're just going to regulate abortion instead. So because the difference is, in the first example, you're still defending a ban. You're still saying that a ban is still okay at opposition, which shouldn't be the case because ang definition nga natin of a motion, diba, is that you're either pro or against it. So, so ang nangyari was that when opposition's clash would be that it's a ban for the second and third trimester. Ang nangyari is government is defending yes to a ban, opposition is saying yes with conditions, when in fact opposition should be saying no. So parang government should be, ang optimum na mangyayari is government says yes to ban, opposition says no to ban. So yeah, gets. Good. Good. Any questions for first speaker? None? Okay. We could move on to the next speaker. Oh, sige. Julia talaga. Julia talaga tawag ko sa'yo, Zane, no? When I known you for years. Sige, Zane, what's your question?
Medyo unclear lang. I don't know if na-mention, pero personally lang, I'm still confused about challenging definitions. About that, is it always applicable lang when a definition is unfair or pwede rin siyang magamit if the definition is incomplete?
Good question, Zane. So, I was actually going to include this next week, pero good na na-raise na siya. So, what Zane was saying was that at leader of opposition, you could raise what we call a definitional challenge. And a definitional challenge is raised uh, when a definition is undebatable or unfair, like as what Zane mentioned. Zane's question is whether we could, could we raise a definitional challenge even if the definition is incomplete. So the reason why a definitional challenge can be quite, pun intended, challenging is that if a definitional challenge is raised by leader of opposition, government and opposition are going to go on with the debate with two separate definitions. So so if you're listening to this very closely right now, you already understand how chaotic it is gonna be because because it's not very few lang yung instances where a definitional challenge is raised and nagkakaroon ng engagement between the teams. Because ang mangyayari is that government would say, no, I'm sticking to my definition. And opposition would say, okay, fine, stick to your definition. I'm sticking to my definition. So ang mangyayari is they're arguing their cases, but they're not fighting against one another because they're in two different worlds. They're in two different definitions. So that's why a definitional challenge, as much as it could be strategic for opposition sometimes, it needs to be done very carefully. Because if it's not done carefully, you could have a debate where ang nangyayari is you're not debating one another, you're just saying your arguments, but you're not fighting one another. So it's just like you say, like government says whatever they want, opposition says whatever they want. There's no contention, and that's a bad thing in a debate because there's no contention, there's no clear clash. That's why it's important for leader of opposition to have that clash, because otherwise, if you guys get to say whatever you want and no one's engaging one another, hindi parang nag-extemporaneous speech lang kayo tapos you're just taking turns. A debate is about you know, there needs to be like a direct engagement and clash between different teams. So that's why definitional challenge can be quite challenging. So back to Zane's question. Zane's question was about should we raise a definitional challenge if one you know, if the definition is incomplete? And I would say you should not if if you feel like the definition is still fair even if it is incomplete, you could just add na lang the definition. So parang ang mangyayari is, for example, uh, government missed out a key definition, a key thing. Leader of opposition can say it na parang, oh, like, just to add to prime minister's definitions, we feel like it's also important to define this in this debate. So, for example, uh, in developing countries, as developing country, this house as Philippines, as a developing country, would create green technology. And then government says defines what green technology is. Na parang, oh, so green technology is about creating technology that tries to minimize carbon emissions and carbon footprints of people. So yeah, that's what green technology is. Leader of opposition can say and add na, we feel that Prime Minister's definition is incomplete here. We feel that it is also important to define what the developing country is. So yun, so there's still so you could still add to that definition of what Prime Minister is saying. The only time you raise a definitional challenge is if Prime Minister says batshit lies na parang you don't understand where the definition is coming from and it's extremely unfair. For example, um, when Prime Minister says green technology is about agriculture. It's only about it's about saving the forest and saving our forests and converting more of our urban areas into green areas, which is like what 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 WTF na parang so Alo could say we believe that Prime Minister's definition is wrong. So therefore we're gonna raise a definitional challenge. And we challenge them by saying that the proper definition of green technology is not that it's not only for green areas and it's not only for agriculture and forestry, but it's for the overall technology concerned about minimizing carbon emissions in the air. So yun. So parang if so for just to summarize, only raise a definitional challenge if the definition is unfair, unusable, and undebatable. But if you feel that if the definition is only incomplete or they weren't able to just say something that you thought that was important in the debate, you could just add to it. So you don't need to make the debate entirely messy by raising a definitional challenge. Just add, make it more complete. And in any case, that benefits you more because the judge would see, ay, o nga no, incomplete yung definition ni Prime Minister. So, dagdag brownie points yun for the judge because you pointed out how their definition was unclear. But yeah. Did that answer your question naman, Zane? Okay. Good, good. Anyone else have any questions? So next, did anyone have my thought process? Sige, pa-survey muna tayo. On a scale of 1 to 10, so, sabaw na ba kayo? From 1 being, I'm not sabaw. Kaya pa. 10 is, sabaw na ako. Nilaga. Sinigang. So, 1 is, di pa ako sabaw. 10 is, sabaw na ako. 6. Or 5. 7. Ang dami na nating sabaw. Anyone else? 7. 7. Oh no! 5. Ang dami na nating sabaw. Sige. Soup kitchen na tayo. 6. 6. Sige. Fine, fine. I'll try to babyfy everything else in this presentation just to make it like not to not to contribute more to the sabawan. So, yeah. But I feel like we're done now with the most challenging and taxing parts of the yeah, like that's why I moved it to the next session because it's a whole new world. Fine. But it's fine, fine, fine. So yeah. So next speaker roles that we're talking about is deputies. And in my opinion, deputies have the easiest job. And pag BP, they have the easiest job. So deputies, ang mangyayari is that they're just going to rebut arguments from the previous speakers. So for example, if you're deputy prime minister, you can rebut leader of opposition. When you're deputy leader of opposition, for example, you could rebut prime minister and deputy prime minister. So very straightforward. And in addition to that, they will extend the cases of their first speaker. So for deputy prime minister, they could just add, bolster, and provide new material and analysis to what prime minister already said. And the same goes for deputy leader of opposition, for their leader of opposition. And in addition to extending the case of their first speakers, they also provide new forms of argumentation. So if they felt like prime minister missed something, they could provide new argumentation. Likewise, if the leader of opposition missed anything, deputy leader of opposition could say that. So yeah, that's deputy. Pretty clear. So the only thing you need to do is a deputy is rebut and rebut, extend the case, add to what your first speaker has already said, and then provide new arguments if the prime minister or leader of opposition forgot anything. So yeah, that's deputies. That's literally it. You just rebut what your former speaker said, extend new argumentation. That's it. Any questions? Took us literally 2 minutes to explain that. So next, now we come into the closing half. So closing adds a new element and a new dynamic into the debate because ayun, there are new teams. This is now closing government and closing opposition. So yeah, actually my favorite. Well, closing. I have a special heart for closing teams, for closing government and closing opposition, but that's my bias. So members have the first task is providing an extension, and this is the most important thing members should be doing. So, what is an extension? An extension is a non-derivative case from opening side, which, at, which very simply put, it's a new case. It's something that opening house hasn't said yet, or it's something that they haven't analyzed further. So, an extension is important because that's what's going to make closing government or closing opposition win the debate at closing. An extension is how they prove why their side is going to be different in comparison to their opponents. So, for example, in a debate about this, uh, in a debate about this House would ban abortion, and government was already arguing about it is women's right. It is the women's right to um, to their own body, stuff like that. Member of government can provide the extension of, for example, yes, it is women's right to control their own bodies. They have their own ability to choose whether to abort or not. But in addition to that, we also should extend the discussion to women who have complications, for example, women who will most likely die in the procedure in case they're not going to get aborted, or have their children get aborted, or for women who were victims of sexual harassment, who did not have the choice of having a child in the beginning. So we feel that the choice is very important to give to them because because there are unforeseen circumstances that complicate that pregnancy. So see how that sort of like elevates the argumentation coming from opening. Na instead of just opening, it's their choice. Closing teams can elevate it by providing a depth of saying that it's not only just about choice, it's also about circumstance, it's also about context, it's also about how different women experience different pregnancies. Every pregnancy is different, so therefore we need to provide them options and choices because that wasn't within their plan to begin with. So, yeah. So that's what members do. They provide extensions. They explain why at closing their side is going to be different in comparison to their opening. So, yeah. And in addition to that, they could rebut their opposing openings and previous speakers. So, for example, member of government could rebut leader of opposition and deputy leader of opposition. Member of opposition can rebut prime minister, deputy prime minister, and member of government. Any questions with that? Any question, or is it clear now? Okay. Let's move on to the last speaker. So we have whips, my personal favorite. Yeah, so members are really good. Members are really good. Members are really good if you have a lot. If you're great at if you're great at spotting things that people aren't talking about. Members are great at that. They can capitalize on that. Actually, closing teams are great. Are the best closing teams are teams that could capitalize on things that weren't mentioned. So yeah, whips are my personal favorite speakers because they're usually the most dynamic speakers in around. Because as a whip, you analyze and assess issues. What are issues? Issues are questions in the debate that happened from the start of prime minister up until your speech. So so issues are the things that that questions that were thrown around and debated on that didn't have a clear answer, and whips answer those questions. So for example, in a debate about in my in my favorite example of this for this session, this house would ban abortion. You're the the an issue would be is it the is it should we give that choice should we give that choice to women? So yeah, and then should we give that choice to women? And then whip could say that. So this is what all teams said. Opening government said this, opening opposition said this, uh closing opposition said this, but the reason why closing government is going to beat all of them is because we said this. So that's what whips do best. They analyze all the issues. They say what has every team said about that issue, and then they explain why their side explain it the best. So this is why closing teams can be quite exciting because they could turn around the entire debate through their speeches. So they analyze and they assess
Sabi
issues
mo kasi,
and
sabi
they
mo kasi Bander. Sino si Bander? Kilala ko lang si Vander, not Bender.
okay. sister was complaining about the can and stuff, the League of Legends Netflix series. Anyways, so in addition to analyzing and assessing issues, you get to rebut previous argumentation. So that's why whips are also exciting for me because you can literally rebut everyone in the entire debate. So for government whip, you can rebut the entirety of opposition bench. For opposition whip, you can rebut everyone from government. So yeah, that's why whips are so exciting because you get to you're the last speakers in the debate, so you could respond to absolutely everyone in the debate. So yeah, whips have the
Fighter may
whips are
shadow
great.
stop with it there.
Great whips are people who have a good overview of the debate and have great ideas and great rebuttals and can like track how a debate has progressed. Like what like and they can identify what argument should we rebut to win this debate. Like what's the strongest argumentation that we need to rebut and destroy? What's the argument? What's our extension that we should highlight more so that we have more chances to win the debate? So yeah, that's why whips for me are exciting. Yeah, that's my bias. Any questions for whips? Any questions? This will be the last. I think let's stop. We'll stop here
You look so confused.
before the
So
quiz.
confused.
Before the quiz. Let's stop here before the quiz. I'm not gonna stop here now. We have 20 more minutes. We have 80 more minutes. If not, if no one has any more questions, grab a piece of paper and a pen.
Okay, but
Kung nagtuturo ka man, carry naman, tax lang.
oh my god, forward.
Magiging mas
It's
tutor
really
ako
close.
ninyo. Well, any questions? I'm serious. Grab a piece of paper or if you're, or maybe like on your notepad on your phone. Degree 5 polynomials. Oh my goodness. Jesus. No.
I worded out of them.
Does everyone have a piece of paper and a pen or anything to write on or type on? So you could just open up Notepad if you're on your laptop, anything. So, yeah. Just anything clarification. Because magka-quiz talaga tayo. I'm serious. I'm serious. And they, honesty system to ha. To, we're gonna, sabihin ninyo yung scores ninyo. Later. Ayun. No pressure, guys. This is just an assessment. Like, so I have a clear idea as well on what can I, what needs more explanation.
It's like that. Everything.
Raise your hand if you're ready na with your piece of paper and notepad or something. Hello, walang nag-raise ng hand din. Okay. Ready. I'm gonna wait until 16 people are raising their hand. Like 15 people kasi I'm the one doing it. 11, 12. Raise your hand if you have your pencils or your accoutrement, your writing accoutrement, or your typing accoutrement, whatever. Yeah, I'm gonna wait for one more person to raise their hand. 30. Everyone ready? Sino raise ng hand? Dito graded guys. Huwag kayong matakot.
Oh,
Hindi siya recorded. It's really just an assessment. To know if like, just to know like for the next sessions, what could I improve on? Or like what could I explain more?
Helicopter.
Alright, since no one is raising their hand,
Body.
you record. But I'm not a teacher. I don't. What's the point? What's the point? Like, what's the point of me recording you and grading you? Na parang as if that was the only measure for me to say that you performed well. When in minus plus fraction. Jesus Christ.
Delikado to.
Yeah, so I'm just like this quiz has no bearing at all to like how you get like it's just a good metric for me to know okay what could I explain better next time because I definitely do not believe in grades in high school in college maybe but in high school no there's no negative points here if you got zero then it just tells me that oh I did a poor job as a teacher. If students get poor scores, then it's more of the responsibility of the teacher to do better. Shouldn't it? Shouldn't it be that way? Like, why should I judge my students for my teaching ability? Like, shouldn't that be the case? Especially during the online setup where everyone's having a hard time trying to learn. So, why should I? Why should I punish students? I should be punishing myself, Char. Sige, everyone good? Okay. So it's some of it is more technical, some of them is open ended, so no worries. Okay. First question. Time for a quiz. Uh, template lang yan. I didn't want to say yes, my quiz. No, it's gonna be a bit scary and intimidating. Sige. Number one. How many debaters are there in a British parliamentary? Write on your paper, Brian! Just go! Walang sasagot dito sa chat. Diyos ko, bro. Ayan, bonus na. D8. May 1 point na kayo. Bro naman. Diyos ko. Kaloka. Question 2. How many debaters are there in an Asian parliamentary debate? I should think. I'm gonna think. Everyone good? Next. How much time is given to prepare for a British parliamentary debate? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or 30 minutes? Hindi ba talaga ba? How much time is given to prepare for a British parliamentary debate? 10 minutes, B 15 minutes, C 30 minutes. Question 4. Oops. Wait, what? I just didn't press it right. Question 4. How much time is given to prepare for an Asian parliamentary debate?
Saan siya galing?
Alrighty. Question 5. How much time is given for each speaker to speak in front? A. 5 minutes. B. 7 minutes. C. 9 minutes. I think I didn't recap this ngayon, so it's fine if you missed this. Ayun. How much time is given for each speaker to speak in front? A. 5 minutes. B. 7 minutes. C. 9 minutes. Right. Next question. Question 6. Name one thing a prime minister does. Could be anything. Name one thing a prime minister does. Name one thing, one function a prime minister does. Anything. Doesn't have to be exact wording. Just the sense of the word is fine. Next. Name one thing a leader of opposition does. I think you guys can predict what the next 3 questions are. So question 7, name one thing a leader of opposition does. Next, name one thing deputies do. Deputy, deputy prime minister or deputy leader of opposition. Name one thing a deputy does. Okay, next. Question 9. Name one thing members do. May it be member of government or member of opposition. Name one thing members do. Okay. Next. Last question. Name one thing whips do. Okay. That is all. That's the quiz. So, okay ba yung time or like was it like was the time too much because I was allocating 30 seconds per question or 30 to 40 seconds? Is everyone good? Do you guys want to revisit any question or did you guys miss any questions? Some sort. Are you raising your hand right now, Brian, or no, no, no? Okay, well. Okay, is everyone good? Raise your hand if you're good. Eight, 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 nine. I'm gonna wait for 12 para kasi 12 yung nag-raise kanina. So, I'm gonna wait for 12. Or may nag-leave eh. So, sige. May nag-leave na dalawa. So, 10. 10 na. Alright. I guess that should be it. So let's review your questions from question number 1. So as Brian already know. So check your own answers, like honesty and honesty at system ng mamaya. So so question number 1, how many debaters are there in a British parliamentary debate? The answer is, as spoiled by Brian, it's C. 8. There are 8 debaters in a British parliamentary debate. Let's see. 6 minus deputies. British parliamentary debate pa lang siya, girl. So, next is question number 2. How many debaters are there in an Asian parliamentary debate? The answer is C. 6. There are 6 debaters in an Asian parliamentary debate. 3 in government and 3 in opposition. Therefore, 6.
The what?
Question number 3. How much time is given to prepare for a British parliamentary debate? A. 10 minutes, B. 15 minutes, C. 30 minutes. The correct answer is 15 minutes. You're only given 15 minutes to prepare for a British parliamentary debate. So the answer is B. Meanwhile, for question 4, how much time is given to prepare for an Asian parliamentary debate? The answer is C. 30 minutes. You're given 30 minutes to prepare for Asian parliamentary debate. And then question 5, because I didn't have any more idea what numbers I could put. So how much time is given for each speaker to speak in front? A. 5 minutes,
Oh,
B. 7 minutes, C. 9 minutes. The answer
I almost
is
died there.
B. 7 minutes, and I will accept any variation between 7 minutes, 7 minutes and 15 seconds, 7 minutes and 30 seconds. All are acceptable. So question number 6. You can raise your hand if you have any other answers from what I said. So name one thing a prime minister does. A prime minister defines a motion. Wantugin ka na sa debate. Just name one thing a prime minister does. They could define. Oh my god. They could define the important terms in the debate. They could define important terms in the debate. They could strategize for their entire team, start the debate. Sure, yep. They could initiate initial frameworks of the debate. Eh, ayusin mo, Brad. Ano ba yan? Yeah. They provide the strategies for their teammates. So, yun. Provide definitions, correct? Yep. Provide definitions. World building, yep. World building. I will accept that. That's correct too. So world building, framing, yeah. Prime Minister can do that. Anyone else has any other answers? So yeah. What happened? Okay. So I should click on the right. Name one thing a leader of opposition does. So almost similar to what Prime Minister does. So but they also provide the clash. They could rebut Prime Minister, for example. They could provide a definitional challenge. I would accept all of those. Leading the opposing of the motion. Kaya naman, I feel like if you worded it, if you thought of it in a way that strategizing for opposition, yeah, I would accept that. Yeah, accept mo na. Accept mo na. Anyone else? Okay, good. For deputies, the main two things that a deputy does, three things pala. is number one. They extend the case for their first speakers. So extend, continue the case for for prime minister or leader of opposition. Number two is that they rebut the cases for they rebut cases for previous speakers. Yeah, they rebut the previous speaker's arguments. That's correct. And yeah, anyone else has other answers for deputy? So they extend and then they rebut, and then they thirdly is they add provide new they provide new argumentation. That's deputies. Name one thing members do. So two things: extensions and then rebuttals. Extensions, rebuttals. Or does anyone have any answers? Does anyone else have different answers than extensions or rebuttals? Differentiate? Yeah, I'll accept that. Differentiating is also extensions. Specify cases from general to specific. Yeah, I can accept that as well. Providing more specificity to cases. I'll accept that. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, good. And then name one thing whips do. So they could rebut everyone else in the entire. They could rebut everyone else in the opposite bench. Yes, they could be a biased adjudicator. That works. And they do issues. They assess, summarize, analyze issues. Yes, analyze issues, give biased summary of the debate. I could accept that. Yeah, but more specifically, that's a reply speech. But whips have different styles, so they could definitely do that. So, anyone else has any answers for whips? Okay, so with that, oops. Oh, okay, that's for next session. Yeah, so, how was everyone's score? How much did they score? And type your score in the chat. Ang negative mo. Ha? Wala, seryoso ba kayong 1 na? 10 out of 10. Okay, go. 10. Anyone else? Type in your answers. How much? 9? Oh, yep. 9, 8. As long as it's higher than 5. Okay, now. 15 out of 20. Sige, I'm gonna interview Anjali tsaka Amber. Anjali, what item did you get wrong? Just so that I know as well kung ano yung itatama ko next time.
Number 2 po, kung ilan po yung sa Asian Parliamentary
Ah,
debate.
I feel like you answered 8 din, no? Or,
Yes po.
kasi the reply speakers, yeah, nadali ka doon. So, ayun. Yeah, understandable. Yeah, sige, sige. Ayun. Not to, like, tawag dito? The word, I forgot. Yeah, super understandable. So, ikaw Amber, what items did you get wrong naman?
2 and 4 po.
1 and 4. Ano nga yung 1
2 po.
is, 2 and 4? Or,
Yes po.
okay. What was 2 and 4? 2 was, yung Asian Parliamentary din ba yun? Oh wait, yung British pa. Nalimutan ko na rin. I forgot. I forgot.
It
Number
was
4.
Asian, I think.
Okay, and then 4 was, what was 4? Basta if you guys got, but for Anjali and Amber, you guys got question 6 to 10 right naman, diba? As long as you guys get 6 to 10 right, I'm extremely great with that. Parang great job already for me for that. Because question 6 to 10 were the most difficult to tackle. So as long as you got that correct, no worries for me. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So, ano yung mga score ng iba? 4 lang yung nagsabi. 18 out of 20. So, 9 out of 10. Dahil, susundukin kita kung hindi ka nag-10, bro. Aabangan kita sa kanto. Okay. Like, the scores have no bearing to me naman. As long as you guys got the gist of what I was saying. That's completely fine. And it's not as if this is the only time we're gonna learn parliamentary debate. So, yun. Anyways, it's now 4 o'clock, so yeah, that formally ends the session. And next session, I forgot what was our schedule. I forgot the sentence. Brad, did you remember what was our next session? Was it advanced argumentation or a debate round? Okay. So for next debate, for the next session, it's either we're gonna have another lecture, another debate. Oh wait, it's either a lecture, um, a demo debate, or I'm going to ask you to watch a debate, and then I'm going to ask you to identify what they were doing. So ayun, I'm going to have you guys. I see na, follow na tayo. Follow na tayo. Sige, wag na nga jump board. Um, so, sige. Oh my god, no! Ayaw mag-cap. Lecture. Background. See. So either next session, it's a continuation of, it's going to be exercises on debating. So it's either 1, a lecture, 2, a debate round, or 3, listen to a debate. So choose A, B, or C. So lecture is ayun, the same as what we do. We just me PowerPoint. B is that we're gonna have an actual debate round in British Parliamentary, and then C is that we're going to both watch. All of us are going to watch a debate round, and then we're going to identify what are they doing. Be fair given a topic. Hindi pwede kasi I'm going to train you guys na to like C, B or C, C, so that we've discussed everything else before debate. C, B or C. So 1B, 2, 3, C, B or C. C, C, A. D, B or C. Oh, wait, fuck. So it's either you guys want to debate round or to listen to a debate. Teka, count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1 to listen to a debate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So 5 want to debate round, and C want to listen to 7 want to C want to 7 chose C. They want to listen to a debate. So since we're a democracy, for next time for next debate session, we're going to listen to a debate, and we're going to, so what's going to happen is that we're going to go through each speaker one by one, and then I'm going to ask you to analyze their arguments for. I'm going to ask you to identify what were their definitions, what was their what was their arguments, what were their what was the clash of leader opposition. So yun. Okay, so that ends up for today. So thanks for coming as usual, everyone, and may you guys enjoy the rest of the weekend. Rest, take a mental health break. And yeah, if you guys have any questions or clarifications, just message me or Brad anytime. So yeah. Or so yeah. Do you guys have any requests for next session? Like music? So hindi na so in case sawang-sawa na kayo sa jazz ni Brian or anything. So yeah. Otherwise, you are now free to go. So thank you for attending as always. Try go. My goodness. Yeah. I But to be fair, I enjoyed Trigo. I enjoyed Trigo. Anyway, anyone else has any questions? Otherwise, we can leave and we can adjourn. What did we didn't have we didn't have robotics nung batch namin. Robotics was an elective. Research, I guess my tip for research is that I wish that you're paired with a team that you enjoy. With research, with the research group where all of you guys are the same wavelength or magka-vibes or you enjoy each other's company at walang patapon at walang everyone's carrying their weight. Ganon. UID and Genshin. Wait. James has a very important question, but everyone everyone else was any other important questions as well. That's any question? 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 Dapat yung idea ko for Icebreaker kanina was Would You Rather Kisay Edition. Kaya lang, I think, who here, who here hasn't stepped on the campus yet because everything's been virtual? Oh no. Oh no. So, yeah. Albedo is not gonna die, James. I think. Hopefully not. Definitely. So if anyone wants to add me in Genshin, that's my UID. My username is Ivy because I like Ivy. It just sounded nice. Yung tipong idea ko for the naabutan niyo pa ba si sino dito yung naabutan pa si Ate Duday? You raise your hand. Si Ate Duday, kung naabutan niyo pa siya. Wait, si Zane lang? Oh my god. We lost an icon. Um, sh- she's staff sa co-op sa canteen. Minsan mataray siya. Pero mabait naman siya. Kaya minsan mataray lang. Tsaka ayun, she has an iconic red lipstick na sobrang pulang-pula. And she works it though. It's iconic. Ayun. Ah, malaki ba canteen and chips daw ginagamit? Ayun. Chips ba or cheats? Chips or cheats? Well, chips, the reason why chips are cheats daw. Yeah, I mean, conversion took longer than buying. True. Kasi, di ba, long time, before pa ng kanununuan ng ng Chuse, debate na daw kung chips or cheats ba. So, hindi namin alam. Hindi natin alam up until now. Tanong natin si Sir Bakabak. Sir Bakabak, chips ba or cheats? Kasi daw, kailangan daw, so for people, sige, I have to explain din natin for people who haven't stepped on campus. So before you go to the canteen to buy food, you need to first convert your money into chips or cheats. So they're like these small plastic things with like the number with like the amount printed on in front. And what you do is yun yung gagamitin mo to like pay for like or pay for food in the canteen. So you don't use cash. You use chips or cheats. And the reason daw is because super hard if you use like um coins and like bills to pay. Kasi daw marami daw instances na pag inaabot medyo TMI nung pinento sa akin. Pero nahuhulog daw sa ulam. Nahuhulog daw sa ulam yung mga barya, yung mga bills. And of course, well, it's unsanitary. So, ayun. So, ayun. So, so just for a sanitary, just to make it more sanitary and just to make it more orderly. And also kasi para fun to like, to give change when 100 people are lining up. So, ayun. They use chips and cheats. Star section ka po. Hindi. Bobo ako. Like, I was... Yeah. That, before the progenitors of like Galileo alkaline stuff, we use noble gases for like, for sections. And I was like, radon, argon for real. And then, what was my oxygen? So like, completely random. Edi kayo na yung alkali. Edi bye! May pala. May pardagulan pala dito. Ano yun? Ano? How big is the library? Like, I would rather be like, the library is like pretty okay. It's okay. It's like around maybe um maybe if you put three classrooms together, if you put three traditional classrooms together. But the thing, I think the more important question is, nagagamit ba yung library? Which is, hindi. So, even if it's big, it's not being used. So, wank wonk. Which nagagamit. Nagagamit lang siya pag research tayo. How big is the school in acres? I don't know. We don't know. Baka may. Tanong natin si Google. Kaya sabi sa acres. Oh, 9.4 hectares. 9.4 hectares. 23 acres. Wait. What's a triumvirate? What triumvirate? My snakes also feel. Yeah, my snake. I do hear that there are reports of grass snakes in the campus, which is strange because we're surrounded by urban area, by an entirely urban setting like yes, SM. PSHS Manila Sai Kisai. Well, from what? Well, from observation, a lot of. I don't think that might be applicable now. Maybe dati it was. Pero I feel like all of the science high schools now are like are like stepping their games up now. So ayun. So I feel like I meet a lot, ano, parang based of like people I meet in UP. All of them naman are like from different science high schools. So like just know that ayun, that yun, I don't feel like we're in a triumvirate. We're more of like a part of ano, we do our we're not in part of a triumvirate, but we do our best. Yun na lang. We do our best. Before we used to be top of science high schools. Well, aside from Kasai, of course. We're like now, uh, yeah, deal. Ayun, does anyone have any question? Any other question? Titingnan ko kung may nag-add na sa akin sa Genshin. Okay. Okay. So seeing as to bomb threat reports of Kisai in 2018 was real. Ewan ko. I graduated way before that. So I wouldn't know.
ADC monitor top.
Sige, Brel, ikaw na mag-explain. I-explain mo yung bomb threat. Ano nangyari?
Parang may naglagay ng sign sa isa sa mga CR na about sa bomb. Pina-evacuate yung school dun sa field. Pero yun yung day na sobrang init pa.
Totoo ba?
Pretty much yun lang.
My goodness. Pero ang dami na ang dami nang narinig, ang dami ko nang narinig ng bomb threat sa Visayas kasi like um parang may bomb threat din dati back in like around maybe around 2012, 13, like bomb threat then. Tapos like pina-evacuate kami. Ganun. Pero ayun, walang nangyari. So, ayun. He just said, okay, stop classes. Okay, bye. Bye, girls. Alrighty, seeing as to how anyone doesn't have any questions, we can formally end here. Like, seriously, we can formally end here. Like, don't feel peer pressure to stay. Unless gusto niyo pa magchikahan. It's completely fine. What's your AR level now, James? Kaya nagtatanungan ng Genshin. Who else here plays Genshin? 33 in you, 42 dati. Wow, you have the patience to create a new account. Ooh, so Sean and Inigo are playing Genshin too. Nice, so nice. Okay, we could like end it here. For real, for realsies. And I'm gonna get myself some milk tea or black tea. What man? I started the game as a Razor main, and then I am now a the team. My main teams are Child Changlin and Ayaka. Yes. Thanks everyone. Thanks for coming.
Amazing.
Oh, Brad, namiss kita.